Do you ever wake up in the morning and say, dang, I really need a place to put this gigantic arrow, and then you just put it in your butt? Really makes you think. Honestly, really activates my brain almonds. Probably where all the Warhammer 2 siege ladders are stored. Anyway, we're getting into some Warsphinx hijinks, and this one is Cetra the Imperishable and the Sphinx of Usekh team up to take down some nasty Norscan nincompoops. Continuing a series between myself and Zach B. Sane. He is commanding the Virgin Barbarian Invaders, and I am commanding the Chad Egyptian Undead. And he's brought an Oliphant, alongside some Ice Trolls and Fimir. For my build, I wanted to put the focus on constructs, so I have Cetra, O King of Kings, on his War Kitty, with a bit extra than I normally give him. He's got Jaffs and Neros as per usual, but I've added Righteous Smiting to make the Bone Giant hit harder from range. And remember, if you overcast it, you get a huge reload boost as well. The Blessed Blade of Patra is also important here. Extra flaming damage versus trolls and skin wolves is always nice, but it also helps him duel War Mammoth. So if he runs into Wulfrik, he'll have a much better chance of performing well in that combat if he brings that extra item. It's expensive, but it can be pretty useful. He's joined by a Necrolith Colossi, who will be the beneficiary of many spells this game. Starts out at around 625 missile strength, but that shoots up to 1451 with an overcast Righteous Smiting. Plus 40 reload skill, plus 40% missile damage. That is a spicy meatball, and he'll try and snipe out some Skin Wolves and Fimir before they close the gap. I really like the Bone Giant. I think it's a good unit. Behind him are the Eyes in the Desert and the Sphinx of Usekh, the two other constructs in this build, both of which are fantastic anti-monster tools. And if you're fighting Norsca, I would argue that is quite important. Bonus versus large, flaming damage, armor piercing. Yeah, the Necrosphinx is a beast here, and with this change in Stalker projectiles many patches back, these guys can actually force large units into attacking them from the front, where their bonus versus large and charge defense comes into play. So that was a nice change. Besides that, nothing too crazy. Some Tomb Guard Halberds in the back, bunch of Skelly Boys, and Kara Horsemen in reserve. Gonna be using them defensively. Now, on the flippity flip, Norsca has a monster-themed army themselves, and in a battle of Kaiju and Jaeger, there can only be one victor. Wulfrik the Duelist is fat and lazy, so he lets his elephant do all the work for him. Massive threat to all Tomb Kings infantry and a problem for their constructs as well. Joined by some Norscan Ice Trolls, which are common here. Mass and Frostbite makes it hard for constructs to disengage from them, and they hit really hard, and so do the Miststalker Fimir, who have the added benefit of being hidden, so they generally don't take much damage on the way in. Some Skin Wolves on top of that, a bunch of Marauders, Throwing Axe Cav, and a Fimir Balefiend with Fireball, Burning Head, and the Scroll of Shielding. Now, unfortunately for the Balefiend, she can't hide, not like the Miststalker Fimir, and that means the Bone Giant is sniping her out right from the word go. Now, I've noticed a weird bug with her. I don't think it's intentional, but when she gets shot by any cannonball, you see intestines go flying, which I believe she's the only single entity in the game where you see that happen. Chunks literally fly out of her when she takes damage. That's supposed to be a killing animation, not a, oof, ouch, I took a little bit of damage. Yeah, I mean, if you have intestines flying out of your body, usually you aren't going to be around for too much longer. But these Bone Giant shots are hurting a lot. Am I wrong? Or Fimir Balefiends not girls? I know the Miargs are girls. I don't know if the Balefiends are. That might be a dude. Who knows? Who cares? Anyway, it's an ugly dinosaur from Barney and Friends. Like if Tim Burton directed Barney, that's the design he would have come up with. Creepy stuff. But yeah, that Righteous Smiting, turning that Bone Giant into a Weed Whacker from range, pissing out bolts left, right, and center, even killing some Skin Wolves. That's what you love to see. Unlikely he'll outright kill any single entity before melee is joined, but any damage on a caster or lord is very much worth it. Although, in the past, I've not had much success shooting into mammoths, funnily enough. They seem to have a hard time hitting elephants, and I don't know why. But Zach's wasting no time. The Norscan rush has arrived, and it will touch home with all the berserker fury one would expect from the frigid north. Miststalkers in the vanguard, Marauders, Ice Trolls, and Wulfrik not far behind. Tomb King's infantry tends to crumble out pretty quick in this matchup. Really, only the Tomb Guard can hold their ground for any length of time, but Burning Heads and Sea Fangs often wreck them as well. So there's usually a reliance on just tons of bodies or on some very powerful constructs, which both the Khemrian Warsphinx and the Sphinx of Usekh provide. Now, the Sphinx should be able to beat the brakes off Wulfrik. Wulfrik doesn't have great stats on a Mammoth. He'll bulldoze infantry, and he can do well against Lords and Heroes because of Hunter of Champions, but other than that, against a bonus for large Sphinx, yeah, not really the target he wants to be fighting. Eyes in the Desert got caught out by the Frost Trolls. They will retreat with Nero's Incantation of Protection active on them, while Cetra and the Spears run interference and try to provide some support. Ideally, you want to get some good shots in with their AP range before the Trolls charge in. You got a Sea Fang ripping in from the flank as well. You gotta take those Spears down to about half HP. Really hard spell to dodge. Probably should have talked about it alongside Pendulum and Burning Head. But those Frost Trolls are in the wrong neighborhood. When Cetra pops that Jaff's Incantation to Curse Blades, that plus 16 bonus for storage means that he can actually hit pretty hard against monsters too. Burning Head dodged out of the way by the Tomb Guard Halberds, but there was nothing to pin them down in place, so that was a risky cast. Maybe not worth it to try it unless you've got some infantry tying them down. That makes it much more difficult for Tomb Guard to disengage and get out of the way. Wulfrik is being completely bullied by the Sphinx of Usak right now, and so far, it's been a good start for the Tomb Kings. Even the Bale Fiends dropping low, completely surrounded by Nakara Horsemen being dunked on by the Bone Giant, and the Mammoth is down past half HP, while the Sphinx is taking almost no damage whatsoever. Frost Trolls are rounding off, but the Khemrian Stalkers are into melee, and they are probably an issue for the Eyes in the Desert, which do have bonus for large and that charge defense against large, but they've already taken some damage against the Frost Trolls, and the Armor Sundering and that high melee attack from the Khemrian could be an issue for them for sure. Cetra does not want to stick in this fight for too long, although if both gooned up on the Mammoth right now, Wulfrik could die here, but Zach is being smart, moving his throwing axes out to this flank to support, and with a couple AP volleys coming in, that could quickly equalize the engagement there, and he's swarming in the center, while the War Kitty bounds out to the flank and gets rid of some of these Icehorn Marauders. I believe they are immune to Psychology, if I remember correctly, so they will not terror out, but they can still be run over by the War Kitty, and the Necrosphinx in the center of everything, not fighting what it wants to at the moment. Killing infantry isn't really its specialty, but it can do that as well. And both War Sphinxes putting in some serious work at the moment, putting the Tomb Kings on their back, while the rest of the army pretty much crumbles out. Everything's dying real fast. Even the Necrosphinx taking some throwing axe volleys now. Another Burning Head. Again, not a whole lot tying them down, so they're able to get out of the way in time. But Norsca crumped that center so quickly on the back of those Frost Trolls and Khemrian, and Wulfrik, of course, with his Sea Fangs. And now the infantry for the Tomb Kings is quickly crumbling out. Eyes in the Desert not really utilized to their fullest potential, I would say. There was a brief opportunity I had to retreat them, so I would not get rear charged by the Skin Wolves, but Zach quickly shut that down and destroyed them with a rear charge. They're gone now, and a gorgeous Sea Fang ripping through Tomb Guard and Skeleton Spearmen, and that cast got, I don't know, 80 plus kills, dealt tremendous amounts of damage to both. In response, Ushabti summoned behind the Mammoth, trying to get him killed. If the Necrosphinx can bound over and capitalize on that cast, Wulfrik won't really have anywhere to go, and we've already seen what the Sphinx of Usaf can do to the War Mammoth. But there was some infantry nearby that's making it difficult for the Ushabti to push through, but they do have the full surround off. Necrosphinx trying to push through, but something is blocking his way, and it looks like it's the Miststalker Khemrian who pushed through, and that Armor Sundering will rack up pretty tremendous amounts of damage on the Sphinx too. And one of the issues Sphinxes have, their animations will sometimes carry them into the middle of the engagement, and now with the changes to mass, that can make it very difficult to pull away. That Necrosphinx is taking way more damage than it should have. The animation carried him into the middle of the Norscan battle line. That hurts a lot. Cetra has popped Incantation of Cursed Blades. Plus 16 bonus for large means his melee attack values are higher against the Mammoth. May allow him to actually outduel the Hunter of Champions, but the Sphinx of Usaf has seen better days. Curse from Cetra going down, hitting everything in an AoE. Those throwing axes getting perfect close range volleys, but now with the double Goon Squad coming in fact triple Goon Squad because the Bone Giant is there too, Wulfrik falls. The Mammoth is out of the picture, and that is a massive blow to the Norscan army. A lot of routing here. Trolls and Skin Wolves don't have leadership to stick around after the Lord goes down. They may return, but it's looking a little bit dicey for them. Even the Fimir, the Miststalkers, routing off, and at the moment, Tomb Kings look to be in the ascendancy, and the Fimir Balefeed missing a point-blank fireball. What in the ass was that? Horrendous shot from the Fimir, and then getting shot in the face by the Necrolith Colossi. That was hilarious. I don't know what is up with her aim. She must be super drunk, but that was a bad fireball, and she got punished for it. Didn't die, but down to slivers of HP and may not return to the full. Balance bar is pretty much dead even now. Norscan Ice Wolves. Ice Wolves? What? I've never heard of that unit before. I believe those are Skin Wolves. They have returned, and they're fighting a Necrosphinx, a Bone Giant, and a Khemrian Warsphinx, so negative Ghost Rider. That will go quite poorly for them. But Norsca is surging. There is a bit of a resurgence coming out of the Norscan Barbarians at the moment, and in fact, the balance bar is in favor of Norsca now. Throwing axes have been belligerent all game long. Their armor-piercing values a huge issue, and the Nahakar Horsemen being used defensively weren't really able to zone them out at all. Necrosphinx, a little bit out of position there, and we'll just have to fight now. Remember, he has magical attacks and flaming attacks, meaning he's a perfect counter to Skin Wolves, but not much of a counter when he's dead. He crumbles out. That leaves Cetra and the Bone Giant. Now, things are looking a little bit iffy for the Tomb Kings. Norsca has a lot of bodies on the field. At the same time, though, everything they have left is susceptible to terror routes, and Cetra's alive. Well, I mean, he's not actually alive. He's, like, totally dead, but, I mean, he's beastly, and he's alive in the concept of, like, a Total War game. So, if he turns around, can maybe route some stuff, but he also doesn't want to get caught out by the Miststalkers. He wants everything else to terror route, so he's leaving the Necrolith Colossi to handle that while he tries to make good on his escape and find a better engagement for himself. Meanwhile, the Bone Giant is doing his best Muhammad Ali impression. Man, those right hooks are brutal. They are lethal. And the Norskins around this thing might round off very soon. Flow like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I am Ali. Look at that, man. He's killing like 6 or 7 dudes every time he swings that right fist. But Cetra finally caught out by the Marauder Horsemen. Miststalkers, their armor sundering. It does so much damage to constructs. Cetra is dropping. He's dropping. He's dropping. And it's looking like he may not have enough killing power to route everything on that flank, which leaves the Bone Giant by itself. And the People's Elbow dropped on Norscan Marauders. It was not enough. It was almost enough. Got very close at the end, but looks like Norsca is able to take it. So, Cetra, 83 kills, 2,200 damage value. He was great that game. You might have noticed it in that last engagement. Actually cast Righteous Smiting on the Bone Giant before the Miststalkers charged in and gave chase to Cetra, and his animation got canceled, which made me really sad. I don't know if that would have changed the game, but a point-blank shot from the Bone Giant might have killed at least 2 models on the Fimir, and that might have been enough to swing that balance of power a little bit. Hard to know. Necrosphinx, Bone Giant, they were great. The Miststalkers were scary, Frost Trolls were scary, Skin Wolves, they got great damage value with the rear charge on the Eyes in the Desert, and that was probably my biggest flaw that game. My Eyes in the Desert were not utilized very well. I didn't get many shots in with them, if I even got any. I'm not sure if I did. I tried to shoot the Mammoth at the start, but that opened it up to a charge from the Ice Trolls. I had to retreat, cast a Nero's Incantation of Protection on them, and when I did have an opportunity to retreat out of the fight in the center and not get surrounded by the Skin Wolves, it was a very small window in which I was able to do that, but I didn't notice it in time, didn't pull them out in time, and when they get surrounded, they don't perform very well. Their melee stats just aren't fantastic. So, yeah, they got wrecked. I think if I use those Eyes in the Desert better, kite away with them a little bit more, get some space, get some shots in, and use them more in reserve, I would have had a better chance to take that game. But Wulfrik was, even though he died kind of early, 150 kills, the Sea Fangs and the charges and the damage he got on some of my constructs was pretty impressive. So well played to Zach. GG. See you next time.